910 Big 550 KTRS. I'd like to welcome in the audience who is watching on KPLR channel 11.2 with your HD antenna. It's channel 187 on Charter. You can watch us at stltoday.com. You can watch us at ktrs.com. You can certainly listen on our app anywhere in the world. Down one app, one radio station. It's a great app. And, of course, 550 on your AM dial. There is a new book out, and it's called Peter O'Toole, Hellraiser, Sexual Outlaw, and Irish Rebel. And it is not a typical book about a Hollywood star. To talk about it is the author and president of the publisher Blood Moon Productions, Danforth Prince. Welcome to Big 550 KTRS.
I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
You got it. You're joining us here via Skype. First, talk about what Blood Moon Productions, what you are and what you do, because you're known for not just digging deep. This is the definitive book of all sorts of great Hollywood stars, and that's sort of what you do, right?
Well, I think that Blood Moon Productions has raised the bar on what readers can expect from the typical Hollywood celebrity biography. We are making serious attempts to salvage the oral histories of Hollywood's underbelly, if you like. Oral sources, never before printed, talking to former reporters often who were on the scene writing their mainstream articles for mainstream papers. We are able to print at last the more detailed accounts of these Hollywood encounters that would not have been printed before or published before for fear of liability. Many of the principals are dead, and we are able to publish these revelations as a last-ditch effort while there are still some living witnesses to the golden age of Hollywood, and that is what we are putting into print with Blood Moon Productions.
So you've
the latest.
Yeah, you've done Elizabeth Taylor, you've done Marilyn Monroe, you've done the Kennedys, you've done Sinatra, Howard Hughes, Merv Griffin.
Yes.
All of those, and now you've turned your attention to Peter O'Toole.
Yes, we have indeed. Peter
O'Toole, for those who don't know, he was the Pope in The Tudors, but he was also a great actor before that. He was in Lawrence of Arabia.
Yes.
He was The Lion in Winter.
Yes.
He was My Favorite Year.
Yes.
One of the giants, would you say, of Hollywood?
Oh, absolutely. He really was the actor who best made the transition between the stages of the Shakespearean Theatre of London and the Hollywood community. No one could play a royal monarch better than Peter O'Toole. We find that a lot of people over the age of 40 know a little bit about Peter O'Toole and certainly have succumbed to his cinematic charm. We find that people under 40 really don't know a lot about him. His career represents the generational gap in the American culture wars that younger people don't know a lot about him, but this book is changing some of that, and we're glad to have brought it to the attention of your studio.
So what is it about Peter O'Toole that is so juicy and so interesting that a book like this is worthy of him?
Well, Peter described his childhood as having been raised not among the working classes of England, but among the criminal classes of England. He was born in rural Ireland. He emigrated with his family when he was about 9 to the UK. His father was a bookie, a bookmaker at the racetracks of Northern England, and he taught young Peter at a very early age how to sell a racetrack ticket and then skip out of the stadium when anyone would return with a winning ticket. Very smart, street-smart kid who failed at many other careers, including journalism. He got a gig working for the local paper covering the city morgue. He wasn't very good at it. He called himself the worst sailor in the history of His Majesty's Navy. He claimed that he spent most of his time either vomiting from seasickness or locked in the brig for insubordination or trying to avoid the sexual advances of his superior officers. He failed in almost everything he tried until it came to acting, and then he had this amazing swagger, this amazing connectedness with the screen that really propelled him into a career that continued long, long after the end of Lawrence of Arabia, which was his breakthrough film for which most people know him. So he covered wide roles, always with a personal investment and a passion that everyone who sees a Peter O'Toole movie seems to remember Peter's performance. A lot of people know a little bit about Peter O'Toole. This is the first biography of any length published on him in 35 years. It is until, so far at least, the definitive story of his childhood, his life, and his romantic associations with many of the leading ladies of Hollywood.
Let's talk about some of that. Peter O'Toole is the book, Hellraiser, Sexual Outlaw, and Irish Rebel. Before we go any further, Danforth Prince, is it true that he drank so much that one night he cut his finger off and he put it back on himself?
Yeah, that was in the filming of The Lion in winter, and he rode out onto a lake being filmed, I think, in France. And he was trying to communicate or yell something to his co-star Katharine Hepburn, and the two boats hit one another. His finger was severed, and he sort of attached it again and then made a joke about it later that he had attached it upside down. He really was struggling all his life with a serious alcohol problem. He maintains that some of his best performances he really got through on the stage after having being a little bit drunk. He later was diagnosed with something like stomach cancer, and he had to totally give up alcohol of all kinds, and that was an enormous struggle, and he did it. He did it. He continued working up until 2 weeks before his death. His last movie was Catherine of Alexandria, where he performed what is said to have been the best death scene ever filmed, almost a rehearsal for his own death that followed about 2 weeks later.
Let's talk about the womenizing. Is it true that he told Richard Burton, "I slept with Elizabeth Taylor and I'm better than you"?
Well, they had a relationship that lasted through many, many conflicts. They were great, great friends. The three of them spent a lot of time together at rehearsing, certainly rehearsal. Peter had met Elizabeth Taylor long before Burton ever got involved with her. He was acting in repertory theater in Stratford-upon-Avon. Elizabeth came to London and was staying at the Dorchester Hotel. She sent her then-husband, Eddie Fisher, to fetch him for a meeting with her, and on his day off the following day, I think there was a Monday or something, there wasn't any performance, he traveled to talk with her about her wish to star him as Mark Antony in the earlier of the two versions of Cleopatra being filmed. That was the British-funded version, filmed at a soundstage in London. It never got made, but at the time, Elizabeth thought he'd be very good as Mark Antony. Elizabeth also was struggling around with who she wanted to become as an actress in the wake of the death of Mike Todd and her present not very happy marriage to Eddie Fisher. And she was experimenting with playing either Sarah Bernhardt, a rather grand Edwardian actress, or Isadora Duncan, the great modern dancer, and she needed a male lead. She considered Peter. Years later, Richard Burton yelled at her. He said, get off it, Elizabeth. Cut all this stuff about you playing Isadora Duncan. You're much better suited to play a Harridan from a Harold Robbins novel. Please try to find your art medium. And she got very mad and threw a vase at him. But their friendship developed, and I'm talking the friendship of Elizabeth Taylor with Richard Burton and Peter O'Toole, into a lasting friendship, which was one of the happiest of his life. There indeed was many scenes of them together in Under Milkwood. That was Richard Burton's ode to the culture and the people of Wales. It was commercially unsuccessful, but there were a lot of scenes of the three of them in a bed together, laughing and joking. The scenes of the three of them in a bed together, too, were bandied around as a rehearsal for the scenes in, I hope this is not too long-winded, but in Becket, the story where Peter O'Toole played Henry II, Richard Burton played the man who became the Archbishop of Canterbury and rebelled. In their callow youths, they had often discussed art and politics in bed together with a wench. And my belief is that their much vaunted sessions in bed together were merely an actor's device for rehearsing or celebrating that kind of actor's dynamic that they had exhibited together in the film Becket and later Under Milkwood. So
Danforth Prince, yes. Danforth Prince, our guest. The book is called Peter O'Toole, Hellraiser, Sexual Outlaw, Irish Rebel. You've got to be careful when you're doing this because you've got to find. I mean, is it all hearsay? How much fact do you need before it's deemed a fact?
Well, we view ourselves as sociologists and journalists much more than we do simple gossip mongers. And the point about Peter O'Toole is that a lot of people, very articulate people, had met him either in London or in Hollywood. A lot of people had written articles about him, talked about him at dinner parties. A lot of people, it is claimed, dined out on the 2 or 3 stories they had of personal encounters with Peter O'Toole, ranging from his enemies to his best friends. There was a rich body of already written sources, and in addition to the work that my senior co-author, Darwin Porter, had collected on him, writing Frommer's Guide to England. He was the author of that book, and during the research of Frommer's England, there was always a lot of coverage of the London theater, and a lot of people in London told stories about Peter. Our job was both pulling into this our own original research with sources, oral sources, as well as all the written sources that people have written about Peter. No one has ever done this before. Everybody knows one story. Now the book makes it available to people that everybody can know 150 stories, 1,000 stories.
Sure. Where can we get the book, Danforth?
Amazon is carrying it. Barnes & Noble is front of store display, I think, this month. It really has made news. The British tabloids picked up this story. Well, not the tabloids, the mainstream British press, the Daily Mail, the Sunday Express, a lot of their competitors really do take a great interest in their native son. Peter was a product of the Royal Shakespeare Company and RADA, the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. So the British picked up the story first. The Americans have covered it too in a more of a Hollywood slant. But this story is really out and all over the place about this new book we've done. We're very grateful.
What's the one thing where you were researching it where you said, "Oh my goodness, I had no idea"?
Well, let me see. Well, I think the story that never gets covered enough quite is his contribution to the movie Caligula. That's the most pornographic of the movies that Peter O'Toole was involved with. That's the movie where the conception of the film, which began with the Bob Guccione of Penthouse Magazine, wanted to do a film. A lot of very A-list actors, including Sir John Gielgud and Helen Mirren, signed up for that along with Peter O'Toole. And to the horror of John Gielgud, the script degenerated with conflicts with the director, conflicts with the producers, conflicts with the studios in Rome into a very earthy, bloody, pornographic film. And the story of how Peter O'Toole allowed himself to really be an actor, to allow himself to be ugly, look like this syphilitic, disease-ridden Emperor Tiberius, really showed the degree to which Peter would sacrifice his own vanity for the sake of acting out the part he was assigned at the time. He really was an actor to the very core, with all the faults and all the virtues that implies. A genius, alienated, certainly quirky. When he wrote his own memoirs, everyone thought that would be revelatory of his episodes within his life, but they almost concealed more than they revealed. I'm very alert to the fact that an actor's autobiography is often a device for concealing things. They're not often, in the actor's own words, they don't want to reveal a lot. Biographies of Marlene Dietrich and Joan Crawford are good examples. They really don't say a lot. But Peter's autobiography was really a mixture of Elizabethan English and Cockney slang and a lot of drunken moments that nobody really knew what the hell he was talking about. So we did our best to provide a journalistically neutral, morally neutral overview of an actor who really straddled the universes of the London stage versus Hollywood.
He died. He died not too long ago, right?
He died in 2013.
Okay, so yeah, a year or so
yes,
ago.
He did very, very recently.
Yeah. All right. The book is called Peter O'Toole, Hellraiser, Sexual Outlaw, Irish Rebel. Danforth Prince, the author. You can get it at bookstores, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. Is there a website where Danforth where people can find out more?
Yes, it's bloodmoonproductions.com. And we are making grounds as producers of a new style of Hollywood commentary, doing our best to salvage these never-before-published histories of the gossip of the underground and the underlying motivation of the Hollywood Golden Age. Thank you for taking a look at it.
You got it. And what's coming down the pike? What can we look forward to in the future?
Well, that's very nice of you to ask. Thank you very much. With the understanding that we have already covered gossipy overviews of the Kennedys and the Reagans, particularly Ronald Reagan's early years in Hollywood, that just won an award from the Hollywood Book Festival for runner-up to Best Biography of the Year. We're about to come out with a book called Bill and Hillary, So This Is That Thing Called Love. And our point is that in all the many books written about the Clintons, no one has really ever followed, from a tabloid point of view, an overview of the oceans of scandal that has been associated with them, and the oceans of reactions or overreactions to the Clintons from both from the right and from the center. There's a Greek drama as well as an absurdist comedy potential in this vast repertoire of literature and fact and vituperative hell that the Clintons have gone through. We are publishing a tabloid-style overview of scandals associated with the Clintons, and that's due out in October. We're expecting some coverage of that. I think it will certainly touch buttons all over the place, but we, again, are reporters doing this as a commentary on the internet and on the tabloid scandals that have followed the first president of the tabloid age. In earlier ages, no one could write this way. Now we have immediate coverage on the Clintons have indeed been guinea pigs or litmus tests for the new American media. We'd like to bring that out in the book we're releasing in October called Bill and Hillary. So this is that thing called love.
Danforth Prince, our guest, his new book, Peter O'Toole, Hellraiser, Outlaw, Sexual Outlaw, Irish Rebel, on bookstands now, and we'll look for that Clinton book in the fall. Danforth, thanks for checking in.
Thank you very much.
You got it. Have a good day. 9:25 here, Big 550 KTRS. Let's check in with